All right. So now I can sit back and relax because I was really worried that we would not have the show again because of my fault. You know, guys, that I'm really bad at IT stuff. So I click here and there, I mute my microphone, then there's an echo because I have two microphones on. Always something happening here, but let's begin with what is important, the chess part of this show and not my blah, 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 blah. So today, we're gonna begin learning once again about exploiting weaknesses, and then in 41 minutes there will be a thematic tournament with my live commentary. I will once again paste the link where you can sign up for the event, for the tournament. But what's important that we're gonna have this thematic tournament on our today's topic and the previous topic beginning in 40 minutes. Make sure you sign up, and then you will receive personal advice from me, watching your games, commenting your games, what can you improve in your chess. So let's see what we have for today. This is a Dreyev Azarov game that actually they played on the internet. It was a blitz game, but you know that I never really care who are the players, what tournament. If I see something really instructive in the game, I want to show you. I want to show you whether it's a 100-year-old game, whether it's not somebody that famous. These players, they are both grandmasters. Simply, this is a blitz game, so normally I think it would not appear in books, but I like instructive games. I don't care what time control, what players, and when. So let's see why I like this game, what I want to teach you with this game. As usual, we're gonna skip the opening because this is a Middlegame show. And once we reach the position I want to talk about, because today's topic is exploiting weaknesses when the opponent advances his pawns in front of the king. Yes, I hear you saying, that's what we studied the other day as well. True, but today it's gonna be about advanced pawns in front of the opponent's king when they castle opposite flanks. So both kings are castled but on different flanks, and the opponent will still push his pawns in front of the king, or he will be forced pushing those pawns. We'll see, because I know it's a bit difficult to imagine what I'm talking about just like this out of the blue without the position, but I think you will soon understand what I'm talking about when we have this position on the board. So far, so good. We have our king on the king side and the opponent on the queen side. And you know that when we castle opposite flanks, you have to attack. How do we attack? So right now it's white to move, and you shall launch an attack. Do you launch an attack with pieces or with pawns? That's the first question to answer. So shall we start bringing more and more pieces to the queen side right now, or shall we advance our pawns and try to open files on the queen side in order to attack black's king? First, answer this question and then tell me what's the move, what would be the best move here in order to achieve our goal and start creating an attack against black's king. And now it's really time to think. All right, I've seen already the good response by so many of you. So congratulations everyone who has said that yes, we should attack with the pawns. So we're gonna start pushing those pawns on the queen side and try to attack lines, all the lines possible, all the files possible, all the diagonals possible. We just want to open the queen side in order to get access to black's king. And as many of you have pointed out, we should be quick because the opponent will do the same. So we cannot just sit and make silent and slow maneuvers, because if we do that, we're gonna be mated. The opponent is not stupid. He will do the same. He will start advancing his pawns on the king side and attack our king. So make sure that when you castle opposite flank, and this is gonna be our next topic, not only advanced pawns in front of the king, but also simply the general positions about castling on opposite flanks, you have to be quick, as quick as possible. Many times we will even sacrifice pawns because what we need is to be quick. So we need to get time for our attack. We need to be ahead of our opponent. Let's see what happened in the game, because yes, the move is a4. We want to push a5 and open the a5 for our rook. That would be brilliant. Our rook is on a1. We haven't moved it, but with a4, a5, we can just simply open the a5 for the rook and make it one of the best attacking pieces in the position. That's cool, isn't it? Here the opponent made a mistake already, because when you see this coming, a4, a5, you start to be scared. So what he did was try to prevent it with a5. But did he really manage to prevent the opening of files on the queen side? What would you play here with white? And remember what I just said before, that you have to be quick and sometimes even sacrifice. You guys are so quick. Yes, it's b4. Well done, b4. We don't care about giving up a pawn or 2 or 3, as long as we manage to open the queen side and crush the opponent's king. So yeah, we want to be that quick that we don't care about material. Of course, it's not about just giving up a rook for nothing. Normally, we sacrifice pawns in order to open the position against the opponent's king when there are castles on different flanks. So let's play b4 and open the queen side as quick as possible. Let me just put it on the board because too much talking, not many moves. b4, that's the best move. And the problem here for black is that, yes, he can win a pawn, and he did win a pawn. Capturing it with the queen, of course, because if he captures with the pawn, that's even worse. We will go a5, either here, just to open the a5, or you can also attack the b pawn. Many ways to play this. Is just very ugly for black. So he tries to keep this pawn on a5 by capturing on b4 with the queen. If he doesn't take it, we will capture the a5 pawn. So he has to do something about this b4 pawn. That's why he takes it. And here, once again, let's think how to continue. We have just sacrificed the pawn. So we have opened the b file. It's a semi-open file. And we have the c file. But what about our pieces? We have a rook on a1, a queen on d1, and another rook on f1. Also, this knight on f3 is a bit far from the queen side. The only piece we have actually is the b5 bishop. So try to think about a way of activating the white pieces, because now that we have open files, we need to use them. And which pieces can use those files the most? Of course, the rooks. The problem is if we go rook b1 now, I mean, it's not a problem. It's possible to play rook b1. But the queen, the black queen, on e4 is pretty good. It's attacking the pawn. It could capture it with a check. So we don't really want to allow queen e4 and queen takes e3. Yes, we can protect the pawn. So we can play queen d2 here. And then we are threatening bishop takes d7 and rook takes b6. The attack goes on. But what about preventing queen e4. What if we change the move order? Because look at this position, rook b1, queen e4. And here the problem is that we cannot win a pawn. We cannot win back the pawn with bishop takes d7 because, as I said, queen takes e3 is a check. So what if we change the move order and we don't start with rook b1, but we do start with quite a paradoxical move, but if we want to attack the b6 pawn, if we want to use the b5, then the only piece that seems to be attacking at the moment is in the way. So what White did was to take this knight on d7. And you are like, why do we exchange pieces when we are attacking? We are not supposed to. Of course, we are not supposed to, especially not exchanging queens. But here, this bishop on b5 is disturbing. It's on b5. We want to have the b5 for the rook. We want to capture the pawn on b6. We want to give mate to the king on b8. So we need to do something about this bishop on b5. And since time is so precious when attacking the king, we don't have time for moves like bishop d3. That's really for very, very old people, and we are not that old. So don't play like bishop d3. That's too slow. Capture the knight. That's protecting the b6 pawn. And after bishop takes, rook takes. Now when we go rook b1, it's not the same because, well, yes, what if queen e4, you might ask? But we will protect the pawn. We can go, for instance, queen b3, after which this pawn will fall. There's no knight on d7 anymore, so we have eliminated a good defender. The bishop on b5 was disturbing us. The knight on d7 was a good defending piece, so we have eliminated a good defender. Now the b6 pawn will fall. That means we win back the pawn. We are happy, we have open files, we are giving mate. Not right now, but soon, because we're gonna bring all our pieces to the queen side. All the pieces coming to the queen side. Anyway, let's see the game, because this is not what happened. What happened was rook b1, queen a3. And here, once again, of course, if we capture on b6, we blunder our rook with queen takes e3. So what shall we do here? What's the best move here in the position for white? Let's think. Good job once again, but let's just exclude a few moves that I have seen. Only a few comments, but I just want to mention why those moves are not the best, so that you can learn from it. In this position, the best move is queen d4. Yes, we protect the pawn and we attack at the same time. Whenever you can defend and attack at the same time, that's the best. And the queen in the center is brilliant. So look at this beautiful queen, protecting the pawn, attacking on b6. This is a great position. What about other moves? Because I have seen the move rook b3 mentioned. The problem with this is that, yes, it's true that it's a move that defends and attacks at the same time, but let's not forget about this guy on a4. If we let black capture this pawn, it's not just about losing the pawn, because yes, we want to open the queen side, so we don't mind sacrificing pawns. The problem is that we cannot capture on b6, because that means the exchange of queens, and we don't want to trade queens. Never. When you're attacking the opponent's king, don't change queens, don't exchange queens. Another move that I have seen, once again for the same reason, it's not good, queen b3. I mean, it's possible to play it if you love endgames, but sometimes you just really need to go for the attack and try to give mate. So if you want to give a checkmate, don't trade queens. That's a general advice. Of course, there are always some cases where you can even like sacrifice the queen, exchange it, and then there's a mate. But in general, you do want to have the queen on the board. That's the most powerful piece we needed in the attack. Just before we go on with queen d4, I want to add, because you guys have said it and you are right, that in this position after queen takes b4, bishop takes d7 was the move made in the game, but also the move that you guys said, knight d4 is really good. So either bishop takes d7 or knight d4, they are both really good moves. Here you are bringing the knight closer to the queen side, you are attacking the pawn on e6, so it's a really good position. The only thing is that here black can go knight c5. That's why white wanted to eliminate this knight, because after knight c5, this e6 pawn is protected and it's not clear yet how can we win. Of course, this position is really good. So if you prefer this variation, of course, your choice, you can. Simply the other line seems to be more forced. After capturing on d7, rook b1, black doesn't really have many options. He has to attack the e3 pawn. And then after queen d4, now what? How can he defend the pawn on b6? He's gonna lose it. So he will not even have a pawn up. He will have nothing for his bad position. This position here is already basically lost. No mate yet. We are not winning a piece yet, but the position is really bad for black. And look how black is doing with his attack against our king. How advanced his pawns are on the king side, how many checks he can give to our king. So he is doing horribly in attacking our king. He didn't have time for it because he was busy capturing the pawns on the queen side. That's why it's so important to be quick, attack immediately. It doesn't matter if you need to give up a pawn or two to open lines against the opponent's king, because look at now the queen side. There are almost no pawns, open files, a beautiful queen on d4. We are going to bring the other rook as well to the c5, and the knight will join as well soon, I promise. And the rest of the pieces, I mean black's pieces, just messed all around the board. No attack against our king. He has to be protecting his own king. He should try. Not easy. He should try. So he played rook c8, bringing the rook logical. But after rook takes b6, well, as I said, the pawn was hanging and it was just impossible to protect it. Now we have even the b file open. The other rook can come to b1, attacking on b7. This is a really, really bad position. And here, even moves like queen c5 don't help anymore, because now that we are not even a pawn down, of course, we don't even mind playing an endgame. Yes, I said to avoid exchanging queens when we are attacking. But it doesn't mean that you have to avoid it like at all costs. So we are not going to make moves like, I don't know. I mean, you can try. If you want to keep the queen at all costs, then go queen b2 and then rook b1. But it means that you are giving up this pawn. And black has some counterplay. There's no point for playing like this. So when the opponent plays queen c5 and there's no material disadvantage, just keep on capturing pawns. So now you are a pawn up. Of course, we want to play an endgame with a pawn up or even two pawns up. If it's next move, then we're going to capture on f6 as well. So when I say don't trade queens when we are attacking the opponent's king, that's a very general rule. Doesn't mean that you have to always take it for granted. So when queen c5 happens, doesn't mean that you have to be like really, really trying to keep the queen away from the trade. So, of course, it always depends on the position, but I think that I've talked a lot about trading queens already. Let's see the game, because that's what is even better. Rook takes b6, and rook c4 was played in the game. Actually, it doesn't really matter what black plays here. In every position, he is worse. After queen d2, now the a5 pawn will be hanging too. And here, now it's once again time to think, because we have this great rook on the b file. The queen on d2 is okay. We will not capture on a5 yet, because then the pawn on e3 is hanging with a check. But we have two other pieces that are unemployed, and we want them. We want all our pieces to join the attack. We need them to work together. So let's see what would you do here? How would you bring the pieces? Which one where? I think it's an easy question, but I will still bring up the time to think image. Good job once again. As usual, you always guess it. You are a great pupil. So yes, knight d4 and rook b1 are the moves that come to mind. We want to have all our pieces active, all the pieces on the queen side attacking. Knight d4 was played first, and it's important because black is also trying to do something. He wants to play rook c2. So pay attention to the opponent's threats as well. Knight d4 prevents rook c2. That's a red arrow. And also attacks the pawn on e6. Yes, we had many different moves too with many other options. You can always think like, okay, let's grab a pawn. So after rook d c7, we can capture this pawn. Or you can capture on f6 too, but I think in general, if you can choose between activity and being greedy, prefer being active, prefer having the most active pieces ever. Because if you have active pieces, you will start having material advantage as well. The more active your pieces, the better they are, the more powerful they are, the more your position can be winning. So sometimes I think we should, first of all, just activate all our pieces to the maximum and then start capturing pawns, pieces, whatever the opponent gives us. So when you have really active pieces, the opponent will have to give up material because he doesn't want to get mated. Don't be greedy when your pieces are still on like f1, f3, like here the rook and the knight, because we will capture those pawns pieces, as I said, later on. Black will have to give up something if he doesn't want to lose the game on the spot. That was a question before, and I just want to answer it because it was about in the previous position. Yes, of course, black can decide to capture this pawn, and it was, of course, an option. Black could have taken this pawn and say then, okay, now I'm a pawn up again. Then I want to exchange queens because, well, he doesn't want to get mated, and he thinks that, okay, now I have the a pawn to compensate, things like that. But the problem is that it doesn't really solve his real problems. We can still go knight d4. This knight is great. Now we only need to bring the other rook as well to the b5. We're going to capture this pawn on e6. It cannot really be protected. And we will not allow the exchange of queens. So there's no queen c2, there's no queen b4. So this is a position where, yes, black has managed to capture the a pawn, but that doesn't really help him. It would help him if you imagine this position without the queens and he starts pushing the a pawn. But with the queens on the board, capturing this a pawn is not something that really can save him from the attack on the b file. That's why he tried to play rook d7. Playing for rook c2, he wants to activate his pieces. That's what I said. Instead of being greedy, he tries to do the same. He wants to have very active pieces. Of course, we cannot let him have this rook on the seventh or second rank in this case. That's why knight d4, really good move. And after rook b4, of course, yes, he wants to exchange pieces. He doesn't want to get mated. And now you can either, well, there are many good moves here. Just pick one, and I will let you know if your one is any of the best ones. There are many good moves in this position. Tell me, which one would you play? I have to admit that I have set a trap for you guys because I was saying that there are many good moves, and it's because I wanted you to fall into my trap. My bad. And you did. Because it looks so tempting to go knight b5. Isn't that like the most attractive move in the position? We are attacking the queen, we are attacking the rook on c7. It seems like we are winning. But is that true? Is it true that we are winning here? Now think for black. What's the best move here as black? He wants to avoid losing material, so he can and he will play. He will play what? Let's discuss this because it's not that easy. So many of you are saying that here the best move for black is rook b2. Let's see if you are right. After rook b2, it's true that you're attacking the white queen. So your queen is hanging, but now the white queen is hanging too. So what's happening here? Yes, you have also guessed that here queen takes a5 is the best move for white. But after queen takes a5, you have to calculate what about queen takes e3. That's a check. You have to consider this check. You realize that you only have king h1. And here some of you started panicking because it looks like black has some tricks, and of course it's scary. You have to count moves like you have to calculate queen e2, you have to calculate queen f2, queen f2 for instance. Many of you have said it. So here it seems like, okay, we cannot capture the queen because that's back rank mate. And he is threatening queen takes f1, once again back rank mate, and queen takes g2 mate. And that's when you are like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And all this you have to foresee before playing knight b5. Yeah, sometimes chess is difficult. So in this position, the truth is that it's white who is winning. What's the best move here? Now try to find the best move for white. What's the winning line? Wow, awesome, awesome, guys. Rook takes b7. Yes, I know it's difficult. It seems like we are getting mated, and that can be really scary. So when you're scared, you start thinking of moves like rook g1, just try to avoid mate. But don't believe your opponent all the time. Here, Your queen is on a5, the rook is on b6, and the knight on b5. That means you have plenty of attacking pieces, and it is your turn. In chess, it's so important whose turn it is. If it was black's turn, he would be giving mate. If it's white's turn, and it is our turn, we are winning because of rook takes b7 check. It cannot be captured with the rook because this is mate, guys. Beautiful mate. What about king takes b7? The problem is that here we go. Queen takes c7. We capture the rook with a check. Of course, king a8, that's a bad move. So he has to go king a6. And now let's not blunder with queen a7. That square is covered. But after having captured the piece, so now we are a piece up, we can simply go rook g1. It's not the prettiest move in the world, but it prevents mate. And we are a piece up. So next move we can go queen c6. Any move we want. We have prevented mate, and we are a piece up with black's king on a6 without any pawns around it. So all this, let's sum up. The position is, the critical position was after, let's go back to rook b4. And here knight b5, we have discussed knight b5, rook b2, all this stuff. So I tricked you because I set this trap about knight b5, and then I also thought that I can scare you with this position, and it seems like black is winning because if moves like rook g1, many of you have pointed out that even like rook c1 could work, not really because of queen a7 and rook takes c1 check. So it looks scary. It just looks scary. You need to calculate. But the real truth is that all that we have calculated is just really not necessary, because after knight b5, sorry, rook takes e6 is a good move. After knight b5, rook b4, knight b5. Knight b5 is a bad move. And not because of rook b2. Rook b2 is also a bad move. I know this is a very complicated position, so you have to calculate a lot, but knight b5 is bad because this rook is unprotected. So if you think about it, we are not even threatening knight takes c7 because this rook is going to capture our rook. So it looks like we are winning something, but we are not winning anything. We are just pinning our rook. After queen takes a4, this knight is hanging and we cannot move it. So you have to play something like queen d3, but that's already really bad if you have to be protecting your pieces. You cannot move the rook away. You cannot move the knight. Everything is pinned. This position is bad for white because of all those pins. So make sure that before you make the most tempting move on the board, just check if it's really good, because sometimes good looking moves are bad and sometimes ugly moves can be really good. So here knight b5 was not a good move. I'm sorry. Also queen b2. Some of you have pointed out that queen b2 is also a good move. The knight is pinned, so black just exchanges queens and then the knight cannot move away from b5. But queen takes a4 is really, really annoying. But let's just see how the game finished. Rook takes e6, so he's keeping the rook. He's not exchanging the rook, but now he's threatening rook e8 check, and the knight has now knight b5 because there's no hanging rook on b6. So we have moved the rook to the e5, and now we're gonna go knight b5. Rook c3, and after rook e8, now really knight b5 check. Black could have avoided all this. Yes, you can say that. Why rook c3? Why not rook c8, for instance? But anyway, this position is bad. We are just capturing all his pawns, and then the knight gets to jump to b5. This is a very good position. We don't have time to discuss it because the thematic tournament is beginning. So let's just see how the how the game finished. Rook takes e6, rook c3, rook e8 check, and after knight b5, we are winning an exchange. Rook b5, a takes, and I will just show you the last few moves. b6, really pretty move to open the b5 for the king, for the rook. What am I saying? Queen e2, queen b3, and e6. Now that passed pawn is winning the game, so it's an exchange up. Bad king position for black, plus we have a passed pawn. There's really nothing for black that he can do. He tried the last trick, opening the diagonal, but still, after e7, there's nothing. We are promoting the pawn. I hope that you like this game. And now, very important, we're gonna practice what we have learned, because it's very cool to learn a lot, to learn from the shows, opening series, other video series here on Chess24, chess books, chess DVDs, everything. But you need to practice what you have learned. If not, it's just gonna be all in your head, but without being able to put it on the board when you actually play a tournament. So we need to practice, and that's why we have a thematic tournament in 4 minutes. Geez, I need to copy the link. You need to sign up for it right now. You only have 3.5 minutes left to sign up. I'm gonna be checking your games, commentating on your games, giving you personal advice on what can you improve in your chess. So I think it's a really useful tool here on Chess24. I hope that you agree. Make sure you sign up for the thematic tournament because we are beginning in 3 minutes. And now I will tell you what the position is. We're gonna practice the position from the game we saw in March. I hope you remember it. It was about, once again, advancing pawns in front of your own king. So there's this h5 pawn and the g5 pawn in black's position. And here it is white to move. We saw this game, white was Topalov. And he played really well this game. So I hope that you remember some ideas. You don't have to recreate the game. It's not a memory check. I just hope that you learned something from that show, from the previous show that was during the candidates tournament. And well, if not, just make the moves that you feel like. We want to exploit the weaknesses that create these advances, g5 and h5. So it means that the pawns are weak and they also weaken squares. Which squares and well, which pawns, obvious which pawns are weak. Try to exploit all those weaknesses on the king side. At the same time, if you are playing black, because I know some of you will have to play this position with black, but it's unrated. So you are not losing rating by practicing with me, by listening to my commentary and my advice. We are here to learn together to help each other improve in chess. So yes, sometimes you will have to play this position with black. Try to improve black's play because in the Topalov game, the opponent didn't really do well. He played weird moves. So you can definitely improve that game. You don't have to play like that game at all. Forget that game. Play as you feel like with black. It's not a lost position. It's just that you have already weakened your king. Try to protect it. Try not to have all the king side open, or if it's open, then attack white's king. I don't know. I won't say any moves. Be creative. This is not a lost position. It's just inferior, and you will all play it with white and black as well. We are beginning in 1.5 minutes, so make sure that you sign up. And oh my god, less than a minute. I will need to bring up the thematic tournament website thingy. And now it begins. I need to switch scenes without making the camera disappear. So, cross fingers because I'm so bad at IT things. Let's try. What am I doing? No, I think it did not work. I'll try again. Yeah, I think I did it. I did it. I can't believe it, but I did it. So it's you. I hope that now you are seeing the camera. You can still hear me and you see what I see on my computer screen, Chess24. So I'm already here at the tournament and you can see that there's only 10 seconds left. So I could join the tournament, but I'm not joining. I'm going to commentate on your games. 3, 2, 1, and we begin. Let's see the pairings for round 1. Who is playing who? And I also want to see which of you are signed up because I want to see. Yeah, I cannot join it, but I want to watch it. Now, so I'm here. I will go back to, once again, to play tournaments, and I will just watch the tournament because I want to see the games and give you my personal advice on how you're doing, how you're managing this topic of exploiting weaknesses. And with black, just really try to do your best. It's not such a bad position. I've seen much worse ones, and I've played much worse ones. Sometimes we just survive really, really bad positions. So here I am at my own tournament, Miss Strategy Thematic Tournament, and I can see this board. Hope that you see the same. I will make it smaller because I think that this is really big. I hope that now you can see it. I think you do. So I'm gonna be watching what happened in this game. The first move here that white did, el ajedrecista león, was knight f1 and then a6, knight g3. It's a good idea, this knight maneuver, actually. I like it because you want to attack those pawns. What happened in the Topalov game was bishop e2 with the same idea. So he went bishop e2, retreating that bishop here. I cannot draw arrows, but imagine bishop e2 attacking the h5 pawn. So he was like asking, you've advanced your pawns, and now what? Who will protect those pawns? What will you do? And he was actually provoking the opponent to push g4. But knight f1, knight g3 could also be a good idea. The idea actually is similar, to attack that h5 pawn and see what black wants to do about those pawns. If g4, that means that we are opening the h5. And it would be really cool to have the rook on h1, but with the king on g1, it's not so easy. Maybe that's why the bishop e2 idea is better, because with the knight on g3, you can't play g3, king g2, rook h1. But anyway, this is the game, queen d2. And I will see what happens. King h2, actually you're playing for that idea. So what I was saying, g3, king g2, and then rook h1, this is similar. Now the only difference is that now, yes, you managed to place the rook on h1. Good, thumbs up. The problem is that if you go back to g1, that means that you are once again not connecting your rooks. So it will be more difficult to double rooks on the h5. That's why it was better to play bishop e2 and then g3, king g2, but the idea is the same. So brilliant, well done, El Ajedrecista Leon. And also Lavarra is doing great because he's playing much better than the opponent in the Topalov game. He's developing his pieces and he's trying to create counterplay. Now, for instance, if he can manage to push b5, that would be interesting too. Although after bishop a6, of course, you have to decide whether you want to exchange those bishops or not. And when you look at your king, that is so open, you really don't want to play bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, that position. That would be already like so scary. So you try to keep the bishop with moves like bishop h8 if possible. I know this position looks really horrible. And it is. But this is what we have. Bishop h8. Good job, Lavare. So yes, you need to keep that bishop because that bishop is protecting your king. You don't want to exchange it. And after bishop g5, he went bishop g7. Of course, black would like to repeat moves. So bishop h6, bishop h8. And we make a draw with threefold repetition if the bishops go back. I'm afraid that white will try to win because this position is really good for white. I would definitely prefer white here, and I think you all do. But Larav is doing a great job trying to defend this position. So let's see some other games too, because I'm curious about all of you. And there are so many of you. There are 35 players, so I will be switching between games because if not, I just cannot commentate on all the games. Let me see. Iber against Mikhail Ovsepian. So Iber is playing with the white pieces here, and he went h4 immediately. Wow, that's really active. So that's also different from the Topalov game, but it's also an interesting idea. You want to exploit the advanced pawns on the king side. I wonder what happens in case of g takes h3. If I was black, I would capture on h4, I think, and then try to push h3 to weaken white's king as well. But what happened in the game was g4, closing the g5, and after knight f1, knight g3, this knight maneuver is really good because you know that this h5 pawn is weak and also the f5 square. So pawn advances weaken many times, pawns and squares. So here the square, the whole is on f5. If the white square, if black's c8 bishop disappears from the board, then knight f5 would become really a monster. A knight on f5, that would be a dream to have. A knight on f5 in this position, no pawn can attack it. That's an outpost. So that would be really cool. And a5, I like this move here because as Topalov did, you can play on both flanks. So just because the opponent has weakened his king, it doesn't mean that we're going to sacrifice all our pieces and try to mate it. We don't have so many pieces on the king side. So yes, those pawns have become vulnerable. The f5 square is a hole in his position, but it doesn't mean that we are winning immediately on the king side. And normally with this pawn structure in the center, with pawn on e4 and d5, and well, as I said in the previous lecture, those pawns are pointing at the queen side. So usually you would want to attack on the queen side in this type of position with white. That's why a5 is a good move. The b6 square is a hole. You can play for something like knight a4, knight b6, all those kind of things, and play on both flanks here. Bishop g5 I like because you want to capture the h5 pawn, so we attack the f6 knight, and it's all really cool for white. I like how white played here, and with black, this is a tough position to hold, I know, so I'm not blaming Mikhail either because this is a bad position for black. But next game Mikhail will be white, so I will also check how he's doing with the white pieces. Let's see some other games because there's so many of you, so I'm really trying to click on everybody's name. If I haven't mentioned your name for the first 2-3 rounds, shout your name, shout at me, say Anna, don't forget about me. Tell me in the chat that I should also check your game. I will really try to cover everybody's game at least once, but there are so many of you. I'm really so happy that there are 35 players today. Bishop e2, somebody has remembered Topalov's move. That's Alex from Italy playing against Devil 70. So Bishop e2, Vasilin Topalov, and Alex played the same move. After h4 in the game, g4 was played, but h4 of course is the other option. The point is that now we have fixed black's pawn structure, so there's nothing going on anymore. There's no g4, and this pawn on g5 will always be hanging, so the knight on h7 is kind of it has to stay on h7 in order to protect the pawn. Let's see what happened. Knight c4, that's where the knight is heading, and we are attacking on the queen side. Very good. Knight b5, this pawn on d6. Let's not forget that this pawn on d6 is also weak. So yes, when you see those advanced pawns, you are like, I want to attack the black king. True, but there are also other weaknesses. And since we cannot open files here, the g5, h5, nothing, we cannot really access black's king. So let's just let's go back to the normal plan, which is playing on the queen side with white. Knight b5, attacking the d6 pawn. Black has to capture on b5, but that means that the a file opens up for the rook. And this position is just really one-sided. Black doesn't have counterplay. He would need to attack our king, but does he have any attack on the king side? Unfortunately for him, it's really difficult to create counterplay, and we can double, triple heavy pieces on the a file and attack the a7 pawn. The d6 pawn will always be hanging. So white has played really well this game. Rook a3, I really like queen d2, and he wants to double rooks on the a file, and also bishop e2 is a good move because the bishop can go to g4 and then to f5. Those are holes in black's position. So black actually played a5. It's so difficult to play this position because you cannot just, well, you can, but I know that nobody likes playing like really passive, just waiting for the opponent to improve his position without you being able to do anything active. So that's why black played a5, but after the unpaused capture, this will be just a pawn down. We can either capture it now, but in that case, after rook takes, bishop takes, maybe he was afraid of rook a8 and that the black rook would enter the position. But rook a1, perfect move. We will capture that pawn anyway. b3, rook b6, and bishop g4, bishop f5. So that weakness will stay on a6. The bishop will have a very nice square on f5, and then the g5 pawn will be weak too. So the problem here is that we have attack on both flanks. So Alex has played very well this part of the game, and I will check later what the result was, but I need to comment on other games as well. So let's see. Sopori Furious, I'm not sure I pronounced it well, I'm sorry, it's so small I can't read it, and Bennett 009. Yeah, then I will check properly the names because I think I should start memorizing the names of my pupils, and Sopori Furious has just won. Congratulations! He played knight f3, provoking g4. After h takes, knight takes. He went for knight h4, once again heading for the f5 square. So I'm really happy that this is an idea that you, or many of you, if every one of you, I would say, yeah, I think in all the games that I have seen, the idea was the same. This f5 square is a hole. So the pawns are weak, the g5 and h5 pawns are weak, and also this f5 square is an outpost for our pieces. So in most of the games, I think this is the plan that you guys are applying. You want to land a knight on f5. Even in positions when the bishop is still on c8, you can play knight f5, and after the capture on f5, bishop takes, e takes. When your pawn is on f5, you will have this e4 square for the other knight, well, for the remaining knight. So that's also an idea that you can use. Of course, normally when there's an outpost, you don't want to have a pawn there, so you can try queen f3 and knight f5, or you bring another knight. You can try moves like knight e2, knight g3, not in this position, but in general, to bring another piece to the weak square. But I like that in most of the games, this is the main idea. Knight f5, actually, this is what I was talking about. After the capture, knight e4. But here I'm a bit scared because black has managed, so Ben f009 did a good job in creating counterplay against white's king. So here I would start to be worried a bit. Luckily, there's no h4 because the knight on g4 would be hanging, but still, there's his bishop on f6 and the queen on e7. The problem for black is this h7 knight as well, but maybe he could try playing knight g5 and then I'm not really threatening knight h3, I think, but then king h7, rook h8, and try to push h4. I know it's difficult, but there are quite many black pieces on the king side. So here, I think black should have some counterplay. And I would be a bit scared, I should tell you. Bishop g5. On the other hand, I don't like that much because that bishop was protecting your king too. So I would prefer to keep this bishop. This guy on f6 is a really good defender. So if you keep that bishop, it's more difficult for white to attack your king. I shall see some other games because their second round is beginning. There's so many games to commentate on, and the blitz games are so short. Maybe I will have to change the time control for the thematic tournament. If not, I cannot talk about all the games. Let me see. Grand Julian against Smile. So this is already round 2. And we see that, well, actually, some of you have already won your second game or your opponents are not here because I see Iber and Raisa on 2 out of 2. Wow. Anyway, in the game between Grand Julian and Smile, knight f1 happened, so the same idea that we saw in the first game, playing for knight g3, heading to f5, and also to attack the h5 pawn. It's a nice idea. I like it. Maybe bishop e2 was more effective because of the possibility of playing g3 later, but it's also a good idea. This is a bit surprising. It's going to... Why are you going to h2? I thought knight f1, you're heading to g3 to attack the pawn on h5 and also to play knight f5 later on, but I'm a bit puzzled about knight h2. Where are you heading to? Because if you want to go to f3, then you can do it from d2. Maybe he wanted to prevent g4, but then it's quite a slow maneuver to prevent g4, and black can still play g4, so you are not really preventing it. I'm not sure that this knight maneuver was good, Grand Julian. I would suggest that you play, instead of knight f1, knight h2, either the move that Topalov played, so bishop e2 here, or if you want to go with the knight, then knight f1, knight g3. The knight is much better on g3, attacking the pawn on h5 and heading to f5. So knight h2 is not a good move, I think. But Smile played really well, pushing g4. And after this capture, bishop takes g4. Now black has quite some counterplay. After king h8, you are bringing the rook to the g5. So yeah, this is how black can cause trouble to white. Here, after bishop h6, though, I'm never happy about exchanging that bishop because this bishop on g7, the dark squared bishop, is so important in protecting your king. So I would prefer playing bishop f6 and then bringing the rook to g8. So yeah, normally you want to be quick in the attack, and maybe it's not a bad move, but simply I just really like to have that bishop and then go rook g8, rook g6, and bring the other rook to g8. I think black had time for this, and I don't see why this bishop on h6 for white would be that scary, dangerous. Anyway, white has blundered after f3 because this can be captured, and thanks to having the bishop on bishop on g7, there's this g takes f3, bishop takes h6, winning the queen. So well done, Smile. You did a good job creating counterplay on the king side. Well, that's where black is trying to attack, but in the Topalov game, black didn't have any attack. So well done. Good job. What about Mate Cox against Miguel Marino? And this, wow, so many things have happened here as well. Let me see. Bishop e2, Topalov's move. Good job. And g4, h takes, h takes. Mate Cox has really learned the lesson. He's playing just like Topalov. g3, king g2, and then rook h1. This is what Topalov did in his game, and I think this is the best plan in this position because you will use the h file against black's king, and at the same time you can attack on the queen side. So he was attacking, he was pushing on both flanks. Knight c4, that's where the knight belongs. But after b5, yeah, here the problem is that if this is where the knight belongs, but black wants to push b5. So before going for knight c4, many times first you need to fix the pawn structure by pushing a5. So here white could play a5 and then knight c4. By playing a5, you actually make sure that when the knight is on c4, there's no b5 coming. If b5 is played, then a takes b6, captures the pawn. Easy. And if he cannot push the b pawn, that means that there will be this hole on b6. So the pawn on a5 is very, very useful with this idea, knight c4, knight b6. Next time, make sure that before playing knight c4, if black has the opportunity of playing b5, then first you fix the pawns with a5 and then you go for knight c4. Let's see some other games, because I really like that you played for this Topalov maneuver, and of course after going back with the knight, this position is still good for white, so no trouble, but black has started creating some counterplay. Let me see some other games. Let's see Georgie Bell against Reza. Oh, it's already a 0-1. What happened? Oh, you were not here, Georgie Bell. That's a pity. What about Brunel Gross against Brunel Grossman against Stefan 999? Wow! Mate and without queens and to the white king. Bishop e2, Topalov's move. So what went wrong? g4, h takes, and knight f1. Well, it's possible, but the idea of bishop e2 was to provoke g4, and after g4 and opening the h file, you want to play g3, king g2, and rook h1 to have the h5 for your rook. There you can double rooks, you can even triple your heavy pieces on the h5, but you really want to make sure that once you have opened the h file, you want to use it, and what else would be the best piece on an open file if not the rook? So g3, king g2, rook h1 is the best plan in this position. You can bring the knight too, but I would prefer the g3 square here for the pawn in order to play g3, king g2. And if knight f1, knight g3, you are actually mixing the plans. And with the knight on g3, you cannot bring the rook to h1. Anyway, it's still a game, of course, and after knight h5, this pawn was hanging, so it was captured. But what I can see is that black was happy giving up this pawn, because after queen e2, well, a6, I'm not sure that he was that happy. But some moves later, something happened. Okay, knight g3, I don't like that much. And here g4, just giving back the pawn. Yeah, here, even without g4, now if black plays knight g4, this position is a bit annoying because it's black who is attacking. So that's why I think that after opening the h file, don't go for the knight maneuver. Yes, in other positions it could be a good idea, but after having opened the h file, the most important is that you use the open file, and you need a rook on h1 for that. So it takes some creativity to go for g3, king g2, rook h1, but that's the best plan in this position. Let me see the other games, because there are so many exciting games and I want to talk about all of you guys. So I tried to click on everybody's name. I hope that I manage. I appreciate that you were here for the lecture and that you started the tournament. It's a pity if you couldn't finish it, because some players just couldn't play this round because of the missing players. But anyway, let's see who are here, because there are many of you who are still playing. And I want to find players that I haven't talked about yet. So, what about Eagle 64 against Surab? I think I haven't mentioned Eagle 64 today for sure. If I can click on that game, I would like to open that game. No, I can't because it's already round 3. But I managed, yeah. So I will quickly go through it, and then round 3 is already underway, so I should talk about round 3. Bishop e2, Topalov's move. Well done, Eagle 64. g4, played by Surab, and this is how the opponent played against Topalov. But there h takes happened, and here bishop takes. It could be an improvement because the bishop on c8 was not doing much. The problem is that this bishop, the light square bishop for black, was important for protecting the f5 square. But yeah, that's true. It's a hole. It was a hole before bishop takes g4 too. But if you exchange this bishop, that means that the knight will head to f5 at some point of the game, not immediately, but imagine a knight coming like knight f1, knight g3, or knight e2, knight g3, and that outpost on f5 will be just horrible. I mean, it will be a monster knight on f5 once it arrives there, because there's no pawn that could attack it, and there's no light square bishop anymore, so we cannot even trade it. Anyway, Let's see if the knight gets there. If not, maybe you are right. Maybe you are right that you have an active bishop. No, maybe you won't be right if you have to go back to c8. What was wrong with bishop d7? I just thought that if you captured on g4 with the bishop, the idea was to develop as quickly as possible, and that's always a good idea. But I don't understand bishop c8. I'm really puzzled. a5. On the other hand, white played very well. This is what I have said, that when black wants to go b5, even if in this position, immediately he cannot play b5, but just in case, you push a5 because you fix the pawn structure forever. You have this great square for the knight on b6, and you are actually winning on both flanks. Weaknesses on the king side and more space in the center and good position and more space and weak squares on the queen side. So this position is really good for white. Queen e7, knight a4. I will just quickly go through it. Very good, actually. The knights are heading to b6, g3 to bring the king to g2 and prepare rook h1. Actually, I also like how black played because he did not just sit back and wait, but he played f5. He has to do something. You have to try to create counterplay. So after f takes, f5, e takes, rook takes, bishop g6, and let's see, yeah, well, the pawn has dropped, and now with the pawn up and the open h5, also the queen side is all for white. With the knight on b6, it's so annoying for black's development that you cannot really take the rook away from b8. You cannot activate your rook because you don't really have squares for the bishop either, and the rook is coming to the h5, so yeah, and here he missed that. This piece was hanging. So very good game by Eagle64, and now I should rush to round 3 and see what's going on. Oh, but these games, I think those that have finished already so quickly. Oh no, this is not a forfeit. I was already saying that I can't see Vertwendy's game because his opponent was not here, but he's here, Rocker is here. Thank you guys for staying. Thank you guys for playing the thematic tournament, for practicing here together with me. Bishop e2, Topalev's move. You are great pupils, guys. And after a6, I'm puzzled. So you don't want to protect the h5 pawn because here you can either go g4 or h4. But a6 I haven't seen yet and I haven't thought about it because the h5 pawn is hanging. Maybe you wanted to give up the pawn or you missed that it was hanging. Puzzled. But white didn't capture the pawn. So even if you blunder the pawn, white believed it, so Vert20 believed it. He doesn't want to give up the light square bishop, so he goes knight f1. It's also possible, but I would have wanted to know what happens after bishop takes h5. I'm greedy, I know, but that was a hanging pawn. So knight f1, bishop d7, this is what happened in the game. He wants to capture the pawn with the knight, that's true, but after either h5, h5 to h4 or g4 here, now the pawn is not hanging anymore. So I would have captured it before. g4. Anyway, the knight is good on g3. We have seen it. It's heading to f5. That's a hole in black's camp. That's a weak square. So it's a good idea. After these exchanges, actually, if now black captures on f5, that would straighten our pawn structure and give us this e4 square for the knight. That would be a really nice square. And if he doesn't capture the knight, then we have a monster on f5. So either way, we have a great piece. Either the f5 knight or a straight pawn structure with the knight coming to e4. I like both cases. Maybe I prefer the knight on f5, but okay. It depends on black which one he chooses. And after g3, king g2. Really good. Everybody remember the idea? Well, everybody. Many of you have remembered the idea of bringing the rook to h1. Great. I love it. I love that you guys are applying the ideas that we have learned. That he didn't even care about this pawn on e3 because he's going for the h pawn. What matters is the h file here. And look at black's king right now. That's the problem. Once those pawns disappear, that's a naked king on g8. So king f8, f6, and it's mate. Congratulations, Vert20. Well done. I'm still puzzled about this pawn sacrifice, and I'm not sure it was a pawn sacrifice. Rocker will have to tell me. But anyway, you played great, even without capturing the pawn, knight f1, knight g3. That's bringing more pieces to the king side, so that's also a good plan. You don't have to be as greedy as I am. Let me see some other games. Goldfinger 772 against Mate Cox. And this is bishop e2, just like Veselin Topalov, g4, h takes, knight c4. This is actually the Topalov game. And we are threatening knight b5 winning the pawn on d6, so black has to go either a6 or bishop d7, just like Matterhawks did. And after g3, white is playing perfectly, just like the former world champion. g3, king g2, rook h1. It's very difficult to face this, I know, with black. So, but the point is that we are practicing. So g3, and after a6, I like a5 a lot because this is different from what we have seen in today's lecture. There we were in a rush to attack. Here, you can take it more relaxed because the position is closed, the kings are on the same flank. There's not gonna be any quick attack against your king. So you can use time for playing moves like a5, fixing the pawn structure, and also maneuvers like g3, king g1 in order to play rook h1. This is the difference between closed positions and kingside castling for both players, or queenside castling. So when the kings are on the same flank, or positions that are open and with opposite flank castling. So very difficult, very different from one another, these type of positions. Here you can go for slow maneuvers. In the other, you have to go crazy and sacrifice and open fight as quickly as possible. a5, good move. King f8, trying to escape from white's attack. I like it. I like how Matterhawks is playing because he's not waiting there on g8, but he might end up with his king on b8. Who said that you cannot walk to the other flank in order to try to protect your king? I'm not sure it would be safer on the queen side though, because white is okay, more than okay on the queen side too. White is actually attacking on both flanks. King g2, king e7. Maybe actually here, yeah, the safest place for the black king is the center. And that's funny because we all learned that you should castle, you should castle, you should castle. Never leave the king in the center. But when the center is closed, so there's no a5, no d5, no f5, nothing, not even a c5. When all those files are closed, sometimes, actually quite often, the king is okay in the center because since there are no open files, nor the diagonals are dangerous, the king is pretty safe there on e7, much safer than on g8, or if it was on b8 and we would bring the rook to b3, things like that. So yeah, I like this idea about king f8, king e7. Well done, Matterhawks, very creative, and he won the game later on, so I just want to see quickly what happened. He took the h5 for his rook, and after that, he went for some knight maneuvers. This is a closed position. You can both go for maneuvers. That's the nice thing about it. I love maneuvers and strategy, of course. And yeah, this knight d1 just dropped the pawn on e4. So that was the mistake because this position is, I think, maybe it's still slightly better for white, but there's no danger. So Matterhawks did a very good job in surviving and bringing his king to the center, taking the h5 for his rook. So very creative. And then here, Goldfinger blundered. If he did not blunder, I think this game maybe would have finished in a draw. But in a blitz game, you can never know. We all miss moves, so it's normal. But you guys both played a very interesting game, so I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of everybody today, actually. Elias 233 against Devil 70. That's a game that's still going on. That's why I want to see it. How is the position? Wow, it's an endgame. What happened? Yeah, doing the head count. I think I managed to count the pawns. No, I did not. That's a pawn down for white. But what happened in the starting position? Oh, it's going so quick that I cannot go back. Knight b5. Knight b5 immediately. Well, it's possible, but without the other knight on c4, you can't capture the pawn on d6, and your knight will be kicked out of b5 after a6. So I don't think this is the best move in the position. After a6, you have to retreat the knight. Knight d7 was played. I like that because this pawn on g5 is so vulnerable. You have to really, really protect it if you don't want to lose it. And this is an interesting move, knight d7, in order to protect the pawn with the queen. And at some point, you might go for queen f6 and try to push g4. I like it. Also, f6 is possible later on. So if you really want to protect the pawn, oh, that's what happened, queen d2, f6. Here, if you don't want to push g4, then f6, just trying to keep everything protected, under control. So if in the future the h5 pawn will be attacked, you can try to push h4 and everything will be one big pawn chain on the dark squares. That means holes on the light squares, but at least you're not losing your pawns. So everything is relative. It depends if a knight will land on f5. That's the whole in black's position. Also, the g6 square is weaker, the e6 square. But so far, so good. They cannot be accessed that easily. So I like this idea of retreating to d7 with the knight, protecting the pawn with f6. Just try to keep everything close, because if the position opens up after g4, we saw that many times it was black who got mated. So even though g4 looks like a very active move for black, sometimes you should really just keep everything protected and wait for your chance. So don't go crazy here with black. g4 weakens your king more than the opponent's king. So f6 I like. And level 70 won the game later on in an endgame. So really good. Good job. But also Elias played interesting. I just think that in the next game you could try, instead of knight b5, either the move that Topalov played, bishop e2, or knight f1 was also an interesting idea that others played in their games. So knight b5 could come in the future after bishop e2, knight c4, but you have to prepare it, because knight b5 in itself will not win the game. Let me see some other games. It's round 4. And I'd like to see, have I talked about you, John 25? I'm not sure, so let's see your game against Devil 70. Let me wait for the game to be loaded. Devil 70 against John 25. And this was bishop e2, Topalov move, g4, h takes, knight takes, that's also interesting, and bishop takes. Yeah, I was thinking whether it's forced to give up the bishop, because I'm not that happy about giving it up, but if you need to choose which bishop you want to give up, the e3 bishop or the e2 bishop, of course you prefer the e2 bishop. So yes, sometimes we have to exchange pieces that maybe we would prefer to keep normally, but the e3 bishop here was more important than the e2 bishop, so it's a good job. And after f3, this bishop has to retreat. King f2. So this is a different maneuver, but very logical if you have already pushed f3. And f3 I like, because if you don't push f3, then, well, what do you do with your queen? f3, very good move. Not only attacking the bishop, but already creating some space for the white king on f2. So you are bringing the rook to h1, the same idea as in Topalov's game with g3, king g2, but now playing f3, king f2, and then rook h1. Very good. Good job, Devil 70. What about John 25, how he played later on? I like bishop f6 because you want to create some problems for white if he misses bishop h4 things, or after rook h1, h4. So this bishop is protecting the pawn. If he did not play bishop f6, foreseeing rook h1 and hanging pawn on h5, then he would really be in trouble, because after rook h1, you can't really hope that moves like knight f6 will protect your pawn forever, because that knight can be attacked very easily with bishop g5. So I do prefer bishop f6 and h4. And maybe if you have time in the future, it could be also knight f8, knight g6 to protect the pawn. But what he played here, what John 25 did, is actually the same idea of bringing the king to the center as we have seen in the other games. So I like it, because in like this, imagine, now that your king is on e7, it's safe. It's a safe place. It's strange, but that's a safe place. And like this, you can really use the king side, because that's why you advance those pawns on the king side. That's why black played on the first hand h5 and g5. He wanted to attack on the king side, but with the king on g8 it was really difficult. So once you manage to evacuate the king from the king side, you can really bring the rooks to the g5 and start attacking on the king side. That's what black wanted, and that's what he can do here. So I'm really proud of John 25, this idea of bringing the king to the center. After bishop f2, the pawn is hanging, you have to do something about it. And I like that once you see that you are losing the pawn, you want to find the best way of giving it up. So yeah, we are losing the pawn, that's bad. But do you want to give the h5 to white? Because if he captures on h4, we exchange the bishops. You don't want to give up the bishop, and you don't want to give the h5 to white. So h3 is a very good move, because yes, you are losing the pawn, but you want to lose it in the best possible way. You want to force black capture on h3 with the pawn, so you have the g file and he doesn't have the h5. So you have some counterplay. I like this game. It was very interesting. Of course, this f5 square is still a hole and we are a pawn down, but I think that black really did a good job trying to create problems for white. Here, maybe I would try to, yeah, actually he played it later on. I was about to say that I would play bishop g5, bishop f4. Here, yeah, knight takes f6 might not be such a good move, so maybe it was okay still. And like this is it's a tempo, but bishop b3 is, yeah, after bishop b3 we cannot go to f4 with the bishop, unfortunately. But it was a complicated game, and I think both players did a really good job. Here it all went crazy. So this is the moment where where black's position collapsed after knight h6. The rook is hanging and the g5 knight will be hanging. But anyway, I really like this idea of bringing the king to e7. So all of you guys with black who found this idea of hiding the king in the center, you guys are just really creative and you are geniuses. So well done, everybody who has found this idea. You play better than Topalov's opponent in the game that we have seen. Let me check. Let me win against Reza. This game has finished already, but I think I haven't talked about Let Me Win yet, so I should. I should talk about all of you guys. I'm trying. Bishop e2, like Vaseline. And whoa, once again the same pawn sacrifice. You might like that movie because I really think that white can capture on h5. Bishop takes h5. I would definitely take that pawn. First you calculate, then you take it. That should be always the order, but I don't see why black can sacrifice a pawn here, because if you play knight takes h5 after queen takes h5, the white queen is already there on the king side around your king, so you are a pawn down, and also there's this white queen attacking you. And if you don't capture the bishop, then what do you have for the pawn? So I think that after bishop e2, black should really play either h4 or g4. Let's see how the game finished just very quickly, because it was a pawn up and then, oh, another pawn. Yeah, this d6 pawn also fell. So yeah, Reza, just pay attention to your pawns a bit more, because this is not such an open position where we can sacrifice pawns and say that, wow, we are winning. You can give up this pawn. Imagine in a scenario where you castle queen side and you are bringing your rooks to g8, and I mean you have one rook on h8, another rook on g8, your king is on b8. So there, yes, you want to give up those pawns and open the h and g5 for your rooks. But here with your king on g8, I would not give up that pawn ever. So make sure that you keep those pawns safe, because those pawns can protect your king. Let me see some other games, because there's Rocker still playing against Colin Cohn. I want to see how the position is, the current position. And I will also check the chat with the help of my phone. So I have Chats24, of course, the application too, but now I'm on the website to see the chat. And if anybody has had any questions about their games, hope I can remember. It's not so easy to remember so many usernames, but I'm trying to do my best to remember who is who. I'm really trying. Oh, Konji is saying that I haven't commented on his game yet, so I shall definitely do that. But let me see first this game that's still going on. Oh, it's already a piece down, so there's not much to say about this position, but I want to see the opening. Rocker against Colin Crone, knight b5. I said in another game that knight b5 I don't think is the best move, because a6 will come anyway. That's a move that black would want to play anyway. And like this is a tempo, so you have to go back with the knight to c3. Yes, the queen has to go, but you have to come back with your knight as well. So I don't like knight b5. That's the reason. And knight a2, yeah, it's a bit slow to go for. I think you are going for c3, b4, or you want to push b4 immediately. Yes, you can play in the queen side, but this is a bit slow this way with these knight jumps all around. I would have recommended Topalov's move, of course, bishop e2 or knight f1, knight g3, as other players did, because just going knight b5 and then coming back and then knight a2 is just too much time. Even in close positions, I said that yes, you can go for maneuvers, but the maneuvers need to make sense. So don't waste time on moves that are not helping you, that are not improving your position. Always use every move that you have is important, even if it's a closed position. Each and every move you can use to reinforce your position, to build up your position, to improve your position. So make sure that whenever it's your turn, you try to make the best of your move, make the best out of the position. And here with these knight jumps, I don't think that you really have your position. That's all I wanted to say. And now I should check Koenji's game because he said that I haven't mentioned him yet. If you are in his shoes, just the same way, please tell me. Shout, say that, Anna, I want you to check my game too. Why don't you talk about my game? Tell me in the chat and I will do it. It's just there are so many players that I'm going from one game to the other, and sometimes I miss a player or two. I don't do it intentionally, so please tell me in the chat if I have done it. I will talk about your games as well, of course. You guys are all important to me, and I want to give advice to all of you. Bishop e2, good move by Simli. Oh, I haven't talked about Simli yet either, so next time tell me. Against Koenj, Koenj played g4 here, not giving up the pawn, that's good. And after h takes, knight c4, I like white's play. Of course, this is how Vestalin played too. So you either go g3, king g2, or you play knight c4, a5, then g3, king g2. You are actually combining the play on both flanks. That's how this position is for white. So on both flanks, on the king side and the queen side, you can play. You have more space in the center and very well coordinated pieces. So that's why you can play on both flanks. And also after this g5, h5, g4 weakening, it's a good idea to play g3, king g2. If black didn't push those pawns, you would just play on the queen side. But now that the king side is so weak for black, of course, why not attack the black king as well? That's why we are playing on both flanks. Knight b5 is a good move because it always forces black to capture this knight. If not, the pawn falls on d6. And after a takes b5, we have the a file open for the rook. I don't know if that anybody else uses that term or it's my term, but I call this I should check it. This is a zero tempo rook on a1 in my words. I should check if it's any official, if anybody else has studied, but by zero tempo, I mean that you haven't actually invested any moves in this rook on a1, but it's already an active piece. So you have activated this rook on a1 without even touching the rook. You have just opened the a file for it. So I like pieces like that. You don't even need to move it and it's already active. So some maneuverings here after bishop g4 knight. I mean, I thought that you played bishop g4 to go to f5 with the bishop, and I think that was a good idea. So I'm not sure that you had to go back. The f5 square is a hole. You can either use it for the knight. That's what we normally say, that's an outpost for the knight. But the bishop is also good on f5. It's just simply a square from which the opponent cannot chase you away. He can threaten a trade of pieces on f5, but he can never attack it with a pawn. That's by a rule. That's a hole on f5. So I would like moves like bishop f5. Maybe you were worried about bishop e7, bishop knight e7, and that the knight would capture your bishop. But anyway, after that exchange, it could still be interesting. No matter, because bishop e2 is good too. This is a position where you can go back and forth. Try not to do that too much, but you are actually having an advantage on both flanks, queen side, king side. So you can, well, king h7 I don't like because it steps into the check, but bishop h5. So now you thought that you don't care about giving up the bishop. Good, because this bishop is not as important. That's what I wanted to say when I was trying to say that you don't have to worry that much about exchanging this bishop, because look at your pawn chain. Many of your pawns, I mean the central pawns, those are the most important. e4, d5, even the c4 and b5 pawns, they are all one big chain on light squares. That means that they are restricting your bishop. So in this position, the better bishop for white, the good bishop, is the e3 bishop, and the other one, the e2 bishop, is not that it's a bad bishop because it has quite some mobility thanks to the open king side. But if you want to exchange a bishop, exchange the light squared one. So bishop h5 I like, and you want to bring your pieces to the king side. So now it's really dangerous out there. And I think bishop h6, very good, eliminating the defender, because as I said in other games, the g7 bishop is your hope. That's a very good defending piece. Once it's exchanged, problems, you might get mated. If not immediately, then soon, but without that bishop, look at those dark squares. You cannot really hide your king. He tried to flee to the queen side with king d7, but after king of queen. Why am I messing up these two words? So after queen f6, rook f8, rook h7. Now the knight is hanging on g6 and also the pawn on f7, so this position is lost for black. for orange, all I would say, it's a difficult position first of all, and white played very well. So you don't need to feel bad about losing this game because it's not an easy position. Maybe what you could have tried, but yeah, maybe before this knight f8, knight g6 maneuver to play a6 in order to avoid knight b5, but I know that after a6, a5 is unpleasant. So this is an unpleasant position in itself, unfortunately. Another thing is that if you can carry out this idea of bringing the king to the center, so maybe instead of knight f8, knight g6, you could consider, well, either first knight f8, knight g6, or king f8, king e7, and then bringing the knight to g6. But just to try to keep the king, well, try to bring the king to e7. And it's strange, but in this position, that's the safest spot you can find for the black king. So once you have the king on e7, it's pretty safe. Then you can bring the rooks to the h file and to the g file, so you can actually start attacking on the king side. That's what is the best plan here for black, bringing the king to e7 and then rook h8. I know it's not an easy plan, and it's not something that you see in every game, but once you learn that when the opening, oh my god, once you learn that the center is closed, not open, closed, when the center is closed, the king can actually be safe in the center. So on e7 here, it could be pretty cool, pretty safe. I'm not saying that it's like the safest ever king I have seen, but how do you attack it with white's pieces? So here, the safest place for the king is on e7, and then you can use the h5 for your rook. That's what I would do here with black, so that's what you can improve. Besides that, I think you did a good job trying to defend this position. It's not an easy position, as I said. John25 is still playing against Eagle64, so I'll check it, and I will also check the chat if I have forgotten about somebody else, because I don't want to forget anybody. Oh, yes, I said it's unrated. Isn't it unrated? I mean, this was supposed to be unrated. No. No, this tournament was supposed to be unrated. That's how I planned it. Because, of course, I didn't want anybody to play a losing position, well, losing quite an inferior position and lose rating because of it. So this was all meant to be practice. I did not plan this tournament to be rated. I don't know how it happened in the settings, because this was supposed to be just a practice tournament for this position without rating. That's what I wanted, and that's what I was supposed to do today with you guys. So I'm really sorry if something has been messed up in the settings, because I set it for an unrated tournament because of this reason. I don't want anybody to play inferior positions for rating. It's just for practice. We are here to practice together. And I understand why those players have left, because of course, if you realize that you have to play an inferior position and you're even losing rating for playing an inferior position, I'm really sorry, guys. This was supposed to be unrated, and that's how I set it up. I don't know what happened. I'm really bad at IT, guys, so should be my bad. Next time I will double check if it's unrated, because we are not going to play inferior positions for rating. That I can promise. It was not meant to be. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry, I'm just shocked, so I can't even think about chess moves anymore, because I'm feeling so sorry, and I feel bad about having announced an unrated tournament where you have a worse position and you need to try to defend it. It was meant to be fun, and it was meant to be a practice, and it was not meant to be for rating. I know that for so many of us, rating is important, and you have to play many games in order to have a good rating. In standard chess and also here on chess24. So I'm sorry if you have lost rating points because of me. It was not meant to be. It was not meant to be like this. I apologize. It was supposed to be an unrated practice tournament, nothing more. We are just training here. That's what I wanted. I'm so sorry. So that really explains why so many of the players have left, because maybe I would have left to my own tournament. I'm so sorry. Guys, oh, I feel bad, and I should try to cheer up because the sixth round has just been announced, and I should focus on who is playing. And I see that Larav it has 5 out of 5. That's impressive. And SD Bayat 4 points. Also Alex on 4, Miguel Marino on 4, Devil 70 on 4 points, Ivor on 4, and then Smile has 3.5, and many guys with 3 points and also with 2.5 points. So I'm sorry about the rating. It was not meant to be. I think I have said it 10 times already, but this is the truth that I was planning this to be an unrated tournament, and this is how I set it up. My bad. For the next time, I'll check it not twice, but 3 times at least that it's unrated, because if you have to play an inferior position for training purpose, that should not be rated. Let's check Larav's game, who's leading the tournament. I'm a bit sad. I'm sorry. Cheer up. Smile back. It's sunny here in Spain. How is the weather there? Yeah, I love spring, so that's at least something that when I look out of the window and I see sunshine, flowers, birds, and I'm really happy. So maybe I should look out the window for a moment and then come back and smile into the camera. Let me find you, Lara, and how you are doing in this round. You're playing against Alex, so that's a decisive game. Bishop e2, very good. G4, h4, interesting. So instead of h takes and g3, you want to keep the king side closed and you want to play on the queen side. That's also an option, of course, because if black cannot create attack on the king side, and it's not so likely if everything is closed, then after knight c4, a5, all those typical moves on the queen side, you can really build up an attack on the queen side, and it's difficult for black, as I said, to counterattack on the king side. So h4 is an option too. I do like how Topalov played by opening the h5 and playing g3, king g2, but of course that's not the only possible way. h4 is also a good move. Here, the only thing you should be careful about is something like knight f8, knight g6 maneuvers attacking the h4 pawn, and there you will have to push g3. Just make sure that whenever you push those pawns, you are weakening squares, so the f3 square would be weaker, the h3 square would be weaker, the e4 pawn could be in the air sometimes, but if everything is under control, if everything is protected, then no worries, your king will be safe. So this should be all fine, and a5, very good, playing on the queen side, knight b6, and here, oh, this was already an exchange because knight b6, yeah, this move, both queens are hanging, so this intermediate move works. And already after knight b6, the problem is that if you move the rook, then you will lose a pawn by bishop takes b4 or knight takes b4. Depends on if you want to keep the knight or the bishop. But yes, this position is already bad for black. I'm sorry, Alex. You should have played something else instead of bishop b5. No, it's not an easy position, but maybe you could try this knight f8, knight g6 maneuver, because the knight is very bad on h7, so you shouldn't keep it on h7. That's a bad square for the knight. Let's move it to f8, g6, and try to do something. Of course, knight b6 is in the air, but if you want to avoid it, then you should move the rook. You can also play rook d8 here and prepare for knight b6, but knight b6 in itself is not going to win the game. So what wins the game is if we lose an exchange or a pawn and such. So that's worse than having a knight on b6. I know it's unpleasant, but still, I think you should try to improve the knight or play rook d8 and then just live with this knight on b6. Let me see. Shaq Freak against John 25. So here once again bishop e2. I like that move so much. g4 takes. Oh, knight takes in this position, and once again bishop takes, because we have already talked about this. Which bishop you want to keep? You want to keep the dark square bishop. So let's take on g4. Very good job. And after bishop takes f3. Wow, the same plan. So yeah, f3, king f2. Very good. And you bring the rook to h1. Very good plan. Very well played by white. Bishop f6, also very well played by John 25. Was that the same game? And now I'm just like praising you guys, and one of you have already played this, because I don't remember the nicks. So I don't remember in the other game where we saw this plan. If it was one of you playing that game with one of the colors, you should let me know in the chat. If not, you are just playing the same way as those players. So proud of you in both cases. Bishop f6, h4. I like also for black, so both of the players are doing fine. And king f8, good job. You should place your king in the center. It's just so open on the king side, so dangerous that the best square for the king here is on e7. So king e7, bringing the rook then to g8. This is the best way. And yes, once the pawn is about to be lost, it's better to give it up by playing h3, so you make sure that the h5 will be closed and you open the g5 for your rook. Very well played by black, and also of course white is doing fine. And he also placed the king in the center, if you realize that. After king f2 he went king e2, so now both kings are on the e5, but that's where they are safer. If the black king was on g8, that would be horrible, and if the white king was on g1, that would also not be very good. I'll just check the chat for a moment, because you know that I need to use my phone for that. Yeah, Conj is saying if Chess24 is able to reverse the rating, I will definitely ask, because that's the least I can do for you guys. This was supposed to be an unrated tournament. I was not planning on losing anybody's rating. Here, we are here to train together. We are here to learn together, improve our chess. So that's something I will definitely do once the tournament is over and once I say goodbye to you. I will, of course, contact the Hamburg team and ask them if they can reverse the ratings lost in this tournament, because it was supposed to be an unrated tournament. Very good idea, Cohen. So thank you. Now I feel better, because if it's possible, technologically, and it should be possible, I hope. I don't know anything about IT stuff, but I guess that it's possible to reverse the ratings lost in this tournament, just this tournament. So yeah, that would mean that we can save everybody's points. Yoo-hoo! Because we are here to learn. We are not here to lose rating. Oh, but SD Bytes is saying that he has gained some rating. I'm sorry, but if we reverse the rating points, then you will lose those points. So all I want is that whatever happened in this tournament was meant for the purpose of training. We want to learn. That's why we are here. You shouldn't care about rating points when you are playing my thematic tournaments, unless it begins from a balanced position. There, of course, playing for rating is an option. You should tell me, actually, when we have balanced positions, whether you prefer rated or unrated tournaments, because it depends on you. But whenever we will have inferior positions, it will never be rated. So, of course, we will reverse the ratings for this. Thank you, Conch, for the suggestion. It's brilliant. Now I feel a lot better. And as soon as we are done, I will try to fix this. And I hope that by tomorrow, you will all have your ratings back. And that's how it should be, because this was an unrated tournament. Sorry for scaring everybody. This is how it should be. This was unrated. We are here just to practice. So I'm very happy for everybody who has applied Topalov's ideas. Also, I saw different ideas, not from the Topalov game, but like this knight f1, knight g3 maneuver. That's also an interesting idea, heading to f5 and also attacking the h5 pawn. Then with black, this king f8, king e7 maneuver. I have never mentioned that maneuver. You guys made it up, and you were right. That's where it's safe. That's where the black king should be in this position, because you want the g5 and the h5 for your rooks. That's why you pushed your pawns, so you need to flee with the king from the king side, place it somewhere safer, like on e7. So brilliant. I'm so impressed by this maneuver and by those pupils who have found it. Also, very good fighting spirit, keeping the dark square bishop for black. I know it's an inferior position, but this bishop on f6 is so useful, protecting your king. So keep it as long as you can. Unless you have to give it up, don't give it up. And with white, the usual things. You can play on both flanks, opening the h5, then playing g3, king g2, the knight on c4, then knight b5. And when black plays a6, make sure that you fix the pawn structure by playing a5. It's a useful move. Make sure that you use one move for that useful pawn move, because it will fix the whole queen side and you will have this nice b6 square for the knight. Let me see if there are any more comments. Never play black for rating, that's what Surama says. And we have a winner. Yes, you guys are right. So, oh, Word20 has also gained rating. I'm sorry, but if you have gained rating and others have lost because of having more blacks, then that would be unfair. So I should, as I said, this was an unrated tournament. I will claim all those rating points back for you guys. Let's announce the end of the tournament. I will try to zoom it. Let's see if I can. Great technical skills here, Anna. IT skills. Oh, I think I'm rated 1000 in IT skills, but I hope that now you can see the standings. La Rave has won the tournament with 6 out of 6. Congratulations! Iber is second with 5 points out of 6. And actually, I know Iber. I played against him, so he's a very dangerous player, very good attacking player. Third is SD Baez with 4.5, so shared third because Miguel Marino and Smile also finished on 4.5 points. Congratulations to all of you guys, and also Alex, who played this difficult game against Lara in the last round. Having to play with Black a decisive game when it's an inferior position is not easy, of course. So Lara, congratulations to you, but also to Alex, because he was in a very difficult situation. Congratulations, Alex, for your participation. You played some very good games. Let me win also, and El Ajedrecista León, Devil 70, Reisa, all finished on 4 points. Then Simley has 3.5, Rocker, Ego 64, Monster GT, and Vert 20, Coenge, Colin Cohn, John 25. All these players are on 3 out of 6. They finished with 3 points. Congratulations, guys. Mikhail Ovsepian on 2.5, as well as Stefan P999, Bene009. And that's it, because the other players have withdrawn from participating. Oh no, Surav is there with 1.5 and Shaq 199 with 1 point. But no matter how many points you have here, it was also actually influenced by how many blacks you got. I know 6 rounds means 3 blacks and 3 whites, but maybe at the beginning you didn't know exactly how to play with white. Maybe then you got some better ideas by playing the position once again, or if you could listen to the video at the same time, then maybe you heard me saying the Topalov idea. I don't know. In any case, I know it influences how many blacks you get at the beginning, because it might have lowered your self-confidence if you lost games at the beginning. I know how it works in chess. Psychology is also very important. Maybe you were scared that you're losing rating because I announced that this was unrated, and then suddenly you started seeing your rating dropping. That must have been a bad feeling. I apologize for that, and I will make up for it. I'm claiming back all those rating points, and I'm going to fix this. I hope it's possible technically, because I've just promised you that I'm going to fix it. But that's what I will do right now. I will contact my Hamburg team, the Chess24 IT guys in Hamburg, and see what can they do in order to fix the rating points that have disappeared in today's thematic tournament. Sorry for those who have won. You were not supposed to win rating in this tournament. We were here to train, to practice together, learning more about how to exploit weaknesses when the opponent pushes his pawns in front of the king. I hope that you liked today's lecture about the advanced pawns in front of a castle king, which was on the other flank actually, so it's even worse because it's a race about who is going to mate the opponent's king first. So imagine, in that case, if you have a pawn pushed so far away from your king, it's easier for the opponent to open files, because if your pawn with black is already on b5, then white only needs to push a4 and the file is open already. That's why it's so bad to advance pawns when you castle opposite flanks. You really need to make sure that your king is safe and you attack the opponent's king as quickly as possible. But this is something that's a different topic without the advanced pawns. So that is for next Wednesday. We will learn about some ideas, some plans on how to attack the opponent's king when it's castled to a different flank. I know that in general, everybody knows that you have to be quick. You should open files, you should pawn storm the opponent's king, but we will see some great examples, some great model games in order to understand those ideas even better. Hope that you will be here with me next Wednesday. I once again thank you for your collaboration, for being so active. Without you guys, this show would not make sense. You know that this is an interactive show. That's why I'm constantly reading the chat, checking your ideas, your answers, and trying to also respond to some doubts if you don't understand something in the position. Sorry if I missed some of the questions. I was really in a short time to go through that game because the thematic tournament was scheduled for 7 and we had to finish the lecture part by 7 o'clock. But I hope that you enjoyed both parts. I hope that you learned something. Let me know in the chat if you feel like you have learned something and what is it that you have learned today. Also tell me if you have found this thematic tournament useful. I will claim your ratings back and I wish you a great week in the meantime because I will see you next Wednesday. So be here next Wednesday as usual, I think at 6. That's the usual time, Central European time, 6 in the evening. But just stay tuned for the announcement because sometimes, depending on other events, there can be a change. But what's sure that next Wednesday you will be here, I hope, watching my Middlegame show. It was Anna Rudolf for Chess24. I think you know me by now, but in case we haven't met in person, nice to meet you. Great to have you here as a pupil, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye bye.